Hi there, and welcome to today's episode where we talk with Katie Barngrover about health and well-being. We do always here on the podcast, of course, but Katie has bringing a very interesting perspective onto health coaching, onto well-being, into recovery. She is a former maths teacher turned health coach, so she combines the love of data and problem solving with compassion for people who feel stuck in their health. And in this episode, we talk about how to uncover hidden stressors, the things that may be causing us our problems, how to improve our sleep, how to balance our energy, how to reclaim vitality through bringing in some testing and some numbers and understanding better of what's actually happening in our body. And she gives a lot of little tips, little actionable tips that anyone can start applying today to start on their health journey earlier rather than later in our lives as soon as we can. So let's come in and have a deep dive into a wonderful insights from Katie.
But before we get into this nutritional, healthy topic, here's your reminder, subscribe. Help us to get that reach because only 5% of you are subscribing to the channels, but yet we want to get that reach to reach as many people as possible. We're getting the views, but we're not getting the subscribe. So we're asking for your help to help us to really get these beautiful topics out there to people who need to listen to them, who are maybe looking for them. So please help us by hitting that subscribe button, like and follow, and sharing these episodes with people who you think would benefit from listening to them. But now, let's get on with our wonderful conversation with Katie.
Hi, Katie. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be here today.
Likewise, we're so excited to dive deep and learn from your journey, your insights, your wisdom. So, where do we even start? I would love for you if you can tell us and our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do. Give us a little bit of a preview and teaser into what this conversation today may be all about.
So I am a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, which is a fancy way of saying I love numbers. So I use data to help divine a plan for my clients to heal themselves. I'm not a big pharmaceutical person. I think we have innate intelligence in our bodies that we just need to tap into, and the data can often point us into amazing directions for healing. So that's my profession. I got into this profession really weird, well, not weirdly, really, but it just took a while. It was a winding path. I was headed to medical school out of college, um, realized I didn't want to be a pharmaceutical representative as a physician. So detoured, but my detour took me through selling insurance and then through teaching mathematics until the culture changed and the opportunities changed where I found that the that the public is now ready to heal themselves. We've stopped as a general culture expecting the handout of the pill, and people are looking for ways to get better without adding more side effects or medications. So finally that door opened, and then some of my own health challenges and my family's health challenges pushed me in that direction, maybe more quickly than I would have otherwise gotten there. So.
Love that you're bringing in the mathematics, that you're bringing in the data. And that sounds like a bit more of a unique approach and unique entrance point into this industry. Yes, often it is our own health issues kind of push us, as you said, maybe sped up your journey a bit because you were like, well, I'm suffering. I need to figure out my stuff. And you
Yeah.
were already on the journey of learning and healing. We're like, wait a minute, okay, I can do it for other people. But I'm interested if we can still stay with a little bit of your, teaching math, doing insurance. Like, what have you learned from there that really you see being something unique and interesting and valuable into what you do now, which is more on the healing spectrum, which is talking, about be it nutrition, be it our health, be it our sleep, be it lots of other modalities and lots of different things. But all of these often end up being, oh, follow your gut and do these natural remedies and do these things. So I'm intrigued, how does this obsession and understanding, I presume, then analysis and
Yeah.
data, how does it play a role?
Well, I was real tired of trial and error. Try this thing, see if it works. Fudge, it doesn't. Try this next thing, see if it works. Oh, fudge, that one still doesn't. I better go back to the doctor. Oh, I still don't like what he has to say. We call it an endless cycle of trial and error, and it just goes on forever. There's always a new thing, a magic thing that we're going to try. It's a device, it's this way of breathing, it's this, whatever. And I had to go through all that on my own journey to find healing in myself and healing for my family. And I realized in the process that there really are systematic, methodical ways that we can analyze and evaluate health that point us in the right direction. There's always going to be some trial and error because the human body is unique. Every single body is unique. But if we can at least point the boat in the right direction, then our amount of trial and error is substantially smaller. As a math teacher, and then also I helped in our school districts to analyze math data and look for patterns in the overall data and where we were failing students on the school-wide level. And so I got really good at just looking for trends and what was going on in the data. And so as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, the data that I look at, I often tell my clients, it's like reading a book, right? When we get our cholesterol tested, it's like reading sentence 2 and paragraph 3 of chapter 6, right? It's like, oh, well, that was interesting, but what does it really tell me about the whole story? Not a lot, right? But when I do my functional testing, what I look at is I try to read, for example, like chapters 2, 4, 7, 10, 12, and 15. So I still can't get the whole story, but I can get a much broader perspective of what's going on in a body and look for those patterns, look for those trends in your health. This result is telling us something similar as this one, or these two don't match at all, so maybe it's this other cause over here. And then from there, we can develop a plan that's based on your own data, as to why you might not be feeling your best.
I love hearing this, absolutely. Because lots of time we will, as I said, go with the gut. We will go with what we see on the internet. Who is the first person that comes our way? And we can kind of be like leaf in the wind, being just drifted here and there and trying new things.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I'm intrigued. Could we talk a little bit more about what are then maybe the tests? What are the numbers? What are the things that you would very frequently? Obviously, I there will be different symptoms, there will be different conditions, so there might be different tests that different people need. But I presume there might be some, overall testings, different methods that people can, be it with someone like yourself or by themselves, start learning and looking a bit more into their numbers and start comparing. So what are we looking at? Where are we going for those numbers?
Yeah. So I typically look at 6, but like you said, everybody's an individual and it depends on um, kind of what they come to me presenting with. I can absolutely change these 6, but typically, like I said, these give me that base understanding of the story. And then we pick out more tests for more chapters if we find that this isn't telling us enough. So the two of the tests have to do with food. I want to know what you can eat, meaning what fuels is your body looking for in order to feel your best. I want to know what you can't eat, what fuels that you're putting in your body are creating inflammation in your body, and agitating the insides and making things not work well. Then we do a test on hormones. So we look at everything from stress hormones to sleep hormones to sex hormones, kind of the whole gamut, and find out how balanced are you, how well are things working together. Then we look at a test on the gut. So we look for the microbiome. Are things good? Are the good things there well? Are the bad things keeping balanced? Do you have any parasites? Do you have any viruses we don't want there? How well are you digesting fat? How much inflammation is in your colon? Lots of things come from that test. And then the final 2 tests help me look at digestion and leaky gut. Are things getting in through your gut barrier that shouldn't be? And how well are you accessing the nutrients from your food? But that's not what kind of food. Is your body breaking it down and letting in the nutrients properly into the body? Or is it treating those foods as foreign objects because they're so big the body doesn't know what to do with it?
It sounds like a lot. And
It is a lot. Yes, yes.
it's really getting into who that person is. Because one of the things that it's very difficult to be sort of diagnosed or looked at as a whole person,
Yeah.
whereas you have 5 or 10 minutes with your GP, they just look at the one specific area, but not at the rest of the person. And this is really great what you're doing because it's taking the whole person and it's really finding a way that they can heal themselves.
Hmm.
It's taking that person and looking at the bigger picture as opposed to just the one spot on their knee or something and not realizing where that's coming from.
Yeah.
So my question is because I'm in the UK, we have the NHS, it's all free. You just go, you see your GP, you get your pills, or you get referred and you wait on a waiting list, which can take years sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not a quick process, but it's something that people are used to. So this idea of healing yourself is not quite a concept that is in the UK as big as it should be. And I'm going to use that word because it should be, people should take their own health into, be responsible
Yes.
for their own health. So you, by the sounds of it, are from the States and it's
Yes.
a very different system there. How are you finding people being open to looking after themselves and not relying on a doctor?
What I have found, and I can work globally, so I can do my work all over in all kinds of systems. What I have found is when a person has been through any medical system to the point where they are frustrated with the new symptoms they get from the new medication they get for the one thing that they went in there for, when they are frustrated that they still don't feel better, they are just being, their symptoms are just being suppressed, or they're told, that's just how it is. You have to learn to live with it. They start looking for other answers. And that's when they find me because they're like, this system, whoever's paying for it is irrelevant. The medical systems are still very much the same. This system isn't serving me and I don't feel better. And I don't, if there's another way to feel better, I don't want to continue to live in this pain and this discomfort, in this restrictiveness of um, location to the bathroom or have to be home at this certain time of the day because otherwise I feel like this. When people get to that place of tired, they're very, very willing to um, look outside the medical system for solutions and take more control um, over their health. Usually takes a bit to get them there, but
But it's almost like why wait until you're at this point where it's either learn to live with it or find something because you can look after your health
Mhm.
before you need to look after your health. You can start to really put into place things or st when you get even a little bit of something, you can think, okay, this might be a start, or just how can I heal? Because we live in a highly polluted society. We've got a lot of stress that's daily. It just varies on the depth. We have a lot of systems in place, like jobs or families or food, that can harm our health. So you don't even have to be in your 40s or 50s. You can even be in your 20s and start to have the impact of all these external things starting to have an impact on your physical body. But it might be only in your 40s where you're really starting to have that life of pain, just constantly being sick or
Yep.
constantly in pain or constantly trying to find the right medication to do something. And unfortunately, a lot of medication has side effects. So you're taking one thing, then you've got to take something else, and there's this slippery slope to just not getting to healing. So it's why wait until you're at that point?
I think really in our 20s, we need to establish the habits to live a healthy lifestyle so that we don't get to our 40s and feel gross. But here's an example that I often use with my clients. If we think about a bucket in our bodies, like a stress or toxin bucket, okay, we have a drain at the bottom, and this is our body's way of getting rid of bad things in the body, right? And then we have faucets at the top, which are things that we add in. Our body itself just produces toxins as we break apart food and we clean up the body. But we add other toxins in from our world, things like you said, stress, low sleep, toxins from our environment, poor food choices, smoking, alcohol, all of the things add to the stress bucket. Well, when we're born, the bucket's empty and the drains are open and they work great for the most part, right? But as we age, as we go through life, that drain starts to get clogged up and those faucets start to turn on more. But we don't notice symptoms until the bucket is full and it's starting to splash out of the bucket. And so in our 20s, we're like, life is grand. I can do everything. I can go out to the bar. I can stay up late. I still feel great the next day, all of the things. But what that really is just that your bucket's not full yet. So it is still under stress, but you're not feeling the symptoms of those choices because those splashes aren't escaping out of the bucket. When we get into our 30s and our 40s, our bucket is now filled up enough that we start to feel things. We're like, I can't handle going out to the bar as often as I used to, or as long as I used to, or drinking as many, or whatever the things are. But it's really not that your body is handling it any less well. It's that your drain is so clogged up and your faucets are so on high that your bucket has now filled up and you are noticing. It was always disruptive to your body. You just didn't notice it in your 20s as well as you do in your 40s. So ideally, people are taking lifestyle changes early to keep that bucket empty so they never have to go through pain. But I find that most people aren't willing to change behaviors. So they don't start them already in their teens. They're not going to be willing to change them until they start feeling pain. Not everybody, but most.
No, absolutely. And I think this is what you touched on is for me personally, my biggest obsession right now in my mid 30s is prevention. It's trying to be how many things can I get ahead of? Because as I'm doing this podcast, as I'm learning for myself, all I'm learning is prevention. Start early, push a little harder in terms of get more sleep, don't drink alcohol, all the things. I'm like, okay, what is the prevention that we can start doing? So I would love to have a little bit of chat with you about prevention. Let's take this step back or forward. I don't care which direction it is, but it's a step
Yeah.
to help those people who maybe, as you said, don't have their buckets full yet and they're not in a panic mode because lots of the time, lots of the conversations we have are about those panic moments of like things are
Yeah.
going seriously wrong. I need to figure it out. And I would love to be able to put out some information and encouragement because you touch on one thing, like what is the motivation? Like, why should I care now? Like, I'm in my 20s, I'm in my 30s, life is best, I'm having fun, none of these things bother me. Why should we start doing things and thinking about things and, putting things in place right now in late 20s, early 30s, late 30s before we start having these alarm bells to be like, you're screwed.
Yeah. Yeah. So lots of reasons there. One of them is it's a lot harder to change habits later. Um, and sometimes the damage is irreversible. Not all the time, not nearly as often as Western medicine likes to lead us to believe, but sometimes we can't fix it. And so if we build healthy habits in early, one, they're easier to maintain because we've established them younger and we've done them longer. And two, there isn't damage to repair. We are maintaining healthy organs and healthy tissues from an early age. Now, those aren't very motivating, generally speaking, when you're in the throes of 20s having a ball. But those are two really big reasons to start younger. It's a lot harder to fix a problem. It takes a lot more time. It takes a lot more pain. It takes a lot more money, a lot more energy to fix a problem than it does to prevent the problem. Um, so to give some people some tidbits, the places that I would focus when you're young are having a quality sleep routine. Okay. And what that means is same time to bed, same time to wake every day. And ideally, it follows the sun schedule. Now, I know in our higher longitudes, we can't, I would be going to bed at 4 o'clock in the winter if I followed the sun schedule. But the idea is our bodies, we have these really cool little cells in our eyeballs called melanopsin cells. I always say that backwards. Melanospin cells, not psin. But anyway, they absorb sunlight and they communicate. They basically are our internal body clock. And so when we get sunlight in the morning, these melanospin cells turn on the clock, they reset the timer in the body, and they start all of the daytime processes. If we don't get daylight to our eyeballs first thing in the morning, shortly after sunrise, that process is delayed and our whole clock shifts later into the day. And then the same thing at night. When we get evening sunlight into our eyes, those cells are like, okay, shifting to the nighttime clock now, here's all the things that have to happen at night. When we change our schedule and we're not sleeping at a regular, consistent time all the time, it's really hard on all those internal clocks in the body, and that things start to get messed up there. So early, that's one of the first habits I would say for young people is do your darndest to stay to a regular sleep schedule. And maybe in your younger years, it's a little bit later in the morning, it's a little bit later at night, but you shouldn't, nobody is ever a night owl. That is not a genetic predisposition. That is a training of the body, and it is not a healthy training of the body. And so try to build that good sleep structure, getting daylight to your eyes. Take your glasses off, take your sunglasses off, get those photons into your eyeballs so that you're building and establishing a good sleep structure. Because so many things come from sleep, poor sleep, or healthy sleep, whichever way you want to think about it. Hormone imbalances, digestive issues happen, lots of things. The second thing to do is find a regular eating pattern. Do not snack all day long. Eat regular meals at the same times most days. If you're off by half hour or an hour, it's not a crisis. If you're off by 2 or 3 hours, that really messes up that internal clock and makes a whole big mess of things in the body. And so those are probably two things that my 20s and my early 30s can work on without upending life and the fun that goes with that era.
It's really interesting to, hear that we are biologically creatures of habit. We are designed to work in sync with nature, in sync with the light, in sync with the movement of the planet. And yeah, especially in our university years, in our early career years, we're all over the place. We
Mhm.
study late, we party late, we sleep in, we eat all sorts of things at all sorts of times. Plus then lots of coffee, possibly lots of alcohol added into the mix. And that, just keeps us running for until we've crashed, until we've
Yeah.
had our first burnout, we've had our first crash, and then we're like, maybe I should not be continuing on this path for longer.
Right, right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to say one-offs are healthy for you, but the body can recover from a one-off much more than from a habit. And so if you build a habit to stick to proper eating times, to stick to proper sleeping times, there's a whole lot of other things we could talk about, but we'll just hit those two for now. And then once in a while, once a month, once, 6 weeks, you have a fall off the wagon, your body's going to recover a lot better than if it's every weekend. There's studies that show that jet lag is hugely hard on the body, but weekend sleep adjustments are just like jet lag. So when we sleep in on the weekend by 2 hours, it's like we moved two time zones. And it takes the body 2 full days to adjust to that. So by Sunday, we're good. We're good at the new time zone. And then we have to go back to Monday. It's like a two hour time shift back the other way. That is really hard on the body. And so it's better to stay on the same schedule, Monday through Sunday, regularly. And then if you need a one-off every rarely, your body can adjust to that better.
Are there any tips that you can share with our listeners in how they can start to listen to their body and finding out are they as healthy as they think they are, or is that little niggling pain something that they need to be looking at? So, because not everybody is in tune with their bodies. I mean, we, especially as women, we are told to shun our bodies and not listen and to look a certain way, and that's what you focus on. So a lot of people are not in tune with what is going on because we've lost that connection, that communication between sort of our heads, our hearts, and our bodies. So can you share some tips or some thoughts on what our listeners can be listening out for or looking out for, just to either help them to make them aware that, okay, maybe I've been burning the candle at both ends a little bit long, or this is something that I can start to look into, start to focus, because obviously we don't want to wait until we absolutely at the end of our tether and our life is revolving around our illness or symptoms. So just some tips or advice or something that they can look at or try and find.
So that's a really hard question because what we find is that as we fill that bucket up, our senses are dulled and we lose that connection with our bodies. It can be regained, but we often don't notice that things have changed because they change so subtly. So I would say one of the first places to start would be to journal when you notice your body is feeling off. Like just to write it down. I felt a little nauseous today and I ate this and this and this within the last 24 hours. Or I've got a headache. I'm not sure why. Um, and then to just kind of make a mental note of like what the things were that were going on around that time frame. Um, to start to look for patterns in your own body. Because as you can find those patterns, then you can go, oh, now when I feel that way, it's telling me this. But we usually are so into life that we just think, oh, it's a headache. It's, I'm under stress, whatever. And we don't try to connect it to things in our life. And so the body is screaming at us to make changes, but we've forgotten how to listen. And that's one of the main things that I do as a coach is we do some intensive cleanup work for the first 2 months of my work with clients in order to get rid of the noise so that they can relearn how to hear their body. Um, and so it's a hard thing to pick up without, doing a major detox, if you've slowly let that creep into your life. But I think that's probably one place to start is just journal when you're feeling off. I mean, a lot of us are taught don't be whiners. It's like that's not the point. The point is to document. When am I not feeling great? Don't focus on those. We don't want to live in that space, but to just be aware, yesterday was really stressful. Today I have a headache. Well, that might be a connection. But wait, I have a headache today and I didn't have stress yesterday. So now we got to look for what else was the common theme between all the headaches and whichever. I'm not sure if that helps you very much.
No, that does help. It's journaling is a really powerful tool, and it's something that Lenka and I have talked about. We've had guests who, talked about journaling, and it is a really powerful tool because it's all very well to sit and think, okay, I've got a headache, I wonder why. But come next week, well, if you're anything like me, the brain is most probably overwhelmed. You're going to forget that you had a headache, and but when you're writing it down, it's easier to see, as you said, the patterns and was it a one-off or is it something that I'm regularly finding I'm getting a couple of headaches a month or whatever it is and starting to see a pattern and then starting to realize it's not just a one-off, due to whatever, and then there is a pattern. So journaling is a really powerful tool.
Yeah, and another tidbit, oftentimes food will be the starting place for a lot of my clients and for a lot of healing. We are often eating foods that we shouldn't be eating. And the funny thing I noticed in my food sensitivity testing is very often the foods that drive us the most nuts are one of two things. They are either foods we already don't like, but we eat because we think we should, or they are foods that we love and we eat all the time. And so I would suggest the foods that you love and eat all the time, if they are truly causing inflammation in your body, you will eat them 2 to 3 days before the symptom appears. And so journaling the foods that you're eating or taking a picture of your foods, your plate and your drink, just to document, and then writing your notes and saying, wait, okay, so I ate, 18, 24, 36 hours ago, I had dairy and I have a headache. And then now you've got something to think about when you have the headache the next time you're looking back going, ooh, I did have dairy yesterday. And so for me, that's the reason I bring up dairy is dairy was a big part of my healing journey. When I discovered that I had a dairy sensitivity, I quit dairy. We were having troubles staying pregnant. And one of my health coaches said, you got to give up dairy. So I did. And I have had headaches at the base of my skull my entire life. And my mother always said, you need to drink more water. And then eventually I would have some Advil and the headaches would go away. Tylenol never worked. Well, what I found out is dairy causes systemic inflammation in my body, which is why the Tylenol never works. The ibuprofen would reduce that inflammation, which would relieve that pressure on my head. When I gave up dairy, my headaches went away. But they were always 18 to 36 hours after I would eat dairy that they would get real bad. And so I never could make that connection living through it until I tested and removed it. And now I know that signal, what that message was trying to send me. But so that might be another piece is journal your food too, because there's often patterns there.
What really, as you were speaking, popped in my mind, also big important part is being present. It's
Hmm.
paying attention and being present, be it, for noticing our eating habits, for noticing, what we eat, for noticing our sleep patterns. But I think it's removing those devices, removing any kind of distractions, and being more present with paying attention to what we eat and how it tastes and how full it makes us feel. And, for me, I noticed I have a little bit of an allergic reaction because my mouth was tingling after food. So I
Hmm.
was like, what's happening? What was I actually eating that didn't happen? That's happening in my mouth.
Yep.
So I think for lots of other things, for lots of our quirks and pains and aches and challenges that we have, I think big lesson is to be present in the moment. You know, Also for sleep, to learn to get rid of our devices, or, banish them outside of the bedroom and not have them there, and not
Yeah.
spend, our last couple of hours of the day just glued to the TV and glued to the tablet and have the light straight into our face.
Hmm.
Is
That's
there,
a
do you have any other kind of tips or insights on where being present in the moment, being present with what we're doing can really be helping us on our journey as well?
that's a huge piece for stress. Most stress comes from living in the future or living in the past. And so if you can recognize, I don't want to say probably most was too much because we just, living in our jobs, living with our families is stressful. But a lot of stress um, in the body is when we worry about the future or we worry about the past because we can't change those. And so the body doesn't know what to do with that. And so it just lives in this fight or flight state. And so being present in the moment, recognizing when your thoughts have drifted in a negative way towards the future or towards the past, can help lower that overall stress level. Oftentimes, journaling at bedtime, what I like to call a brain dump, to just blah all the things you can't stop thinking about on a paper so that you can shelf them and don't have to think about them. You're like, I don't have to worry about forgetting it because it's written down. And following that up with gratitude. I am grateful for a warm bed. I am grateful for, my partner sleeping next to me. I am grateful for, whatever. Following that up with gratefuls can help to turn that internal clock off sometimes, or that internal rat race off. But you mentioned a good thing about screens at night. Part of the sleep pattern. So all of our screens emit blue light of the same frequency as the sun from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So when we are on screens after dark, we are sending our body the signal that it is the middle of the day. And so the body wants to do all of the middle of the day activities. It wants to eat, it wants to move, it wants to be up and about, it wants to think, it wants to problem solve. All of those things that are supposed to be heightened in the middle of the day, we tell the body that it's 6, 8, 10 o'clock at night is the time to be doing those when we are on screens. And so investing in a quality pair of blue light blockers can be really helpful if you struggle to go to bed early. Make sure you get amber tinted glasses, not yellow or clear, because the amber tinted block all of the blue light. Don't wear them when you're driving. Don't wear them before dark because you want blue light before dark. And that's when you use the yellow glasses is during the daytime because it blocks out the intense screen blue lights, but keeps the regular daylight wavelengths in there. But that can be a really good help too if you struggle to go to sleep early and you're on screens a lot. We know we should put them away. In reality, most of us won't. So adapt and invest in some blue light blockers.
Check your devices, and they all have different settings and apps that help to block. So my phone from now on, from 4 o'clock onwards, often starts getting redder and redder and red and darker and darker and darker, because then it's also hard for me to look at it. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. The fact that I'm bringing the phone closer is not that I'm getting blind. It's that I've on purpose tried to block myself, stop myself. I'm creating little,
Good.
reminders and nudges to be
Yep.
like, I want these apps to be blocked and inaccessible, and I want the filters on my laptop and on my phone to start coming strong. So then I'm like, wait a minute, why it's so hard? Oh yeah, it's because it's time to shut off. And
Right.
so I love that,
Yes, those are fantastic.
having those glasses a thing, but again, that means we have to remind to put them on, while
Yes.
I know we have some options in the technology that we're so addicted to that helps us to, stay a bit more in control of these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
speaking of addiction, as we were talking, one thing that popped in my mind, I want to see your opinion is sugar, because I have just put myself on at least 30 days. I'm hoping it's going to be by till the end of the year, but 30-day sugar-free detox because I really realized that in the recent times, sugar has become like such an addictive thing. And
Mhm.
I like some nice cake with my coffee and a little bit of gummy bears here and there. And then you realize that all you do all day, every day is just craving sugar. Uh,
Mhm.
what do you do with people when I don't even talk about weight loss? I don't even talk about necessary effect on that. I mean,
Mhm.
overall, what is your opinion on sugar? How do we deal with sweeteners or any kind of an alternatives to sugar? We know that sugar is bad, but we don't necessarily have the willpower to say no
Mhm.
all the time.
Mhm.
So, what can our listeners learn about managing their sugar intake? What to pay attention? What is the biggest red flag? What are the things that we can kind of let slid by? What is your advice to handling sugar? Because I believe that we as a humankind right now, or mostly, at least in the Western world, we are all on one level or another addicted to sugar.
Yes, yes. There are lots of potential causes, and there's no way for me to touch them all, but I'll try to touch on a couple. Um, First of all, if you are craving sugar all of the time, check the rest of your nutrient balance. Typically, I will see a lot of sugar cravings leave when we improve fat adapted fueling. And so what I mean by that is if you are eating a low fat diet, you are depriving your body of a critical nutrient it needs in order to provide energy, to provide cell structure, and to heal. So healthy fats, okay, healthy fats being butter, tallow, pork lard, extra virgin olive oil, and coconut oil are the primary ones. There's a couple others, but those are the best healthy fats. When you give those to your body in adequate amounts and your body gets accustomed to turning the fats into fuel, you will crave sugars substantially less. And so, what I often tell clients is increase your fat intake because we have been trained that fat is bad for decades, and it was a giant lie. And I can run down that rabbit hole later if you want me to. But fat is really very critical for our bodies, and it will not cause heart disease, and it will not make you fat. Sugars make you fat, and like you said, I'm not a big weight loss person. That's not part of my focus. My focus is helping the body feel better. But we often notice that weight will disappear when we reduce sugar because we've increased fat. Um, so that's one piece. Check your fats. What I like to tell my clients is if the fat still tastes good at the end of the meal and you want to lick it off your plate, you didn't eat enough. It's okay to eat more butter. So when your body gets used to eating fat or used to turning fat into fuel, you will probably find your sugar cravings decrease. Another piece to consider, but this one you have to do through testing, is some of the bacteria in our gut, the parasites in our gut, the yeast and fungus in our gut can actually hijack your signaling system and tell your brain to eat more sugar because they want it for their fuel. And so if changing the diet doesn't help a lot, drinking more water doesn't help a lot, it might be worth getting your gut tested to find out if you have bugs in there that are actually hijacking your brain to make you eat more sugar. Yeast is a really big one. And actually, you can do your own self-test on yeast. Um, it has to do like collect some saliva in your mouth, spit in a jar, and if it is stringy and just kind of hangs there, then you probably have a yeast problem. Um, I don't use that test very often, so don't hold me exactly to that testing. I'm thinking back, going, I think that's the way that works.
Google it.
But you can search it up online.
Yeah. Have a look online, ask ChatGPT,
Yeah.
Google it. If you feel like this could be you and you want a
Yeah.
quick test to, indicate right or wrong, Google it
Yeah. Do
and give it a try.
self-test for candida. Yep.
That is so interesting, and thank you so much for helping, bring a little bit more awareness and insight into all of these subjects. We covered so much already. I'm amazed, we managed to go from sleep into, almost like the circadian rhythm and into food and into prevention. There's so many things, but I still want to know a little bit more. So we can be asking you all sorts of random questions all day long, but I would love to know from your experiences, are there any patterns of challenges, problems, conditions that people are more likely coming to you with that you see being almost systemic issue that leads towards, where we are as a society that our listeners could again self-identify with? Maybe this is me early stages, maybe this is me in there, and I should start considering doing something about that.
I end up with a lot of clients with digestive issues, um, which is interesting because that wasn't ever my problem. But that's right now what I seem to be drawing towards me, which is fine. Um, and what I think what people should notice is if you are not going to the bathroom, if you are not stooling every day, then whether or not you have to strain to go to the bathroom or not, you are constipated, and that is not a healthy place to be. Our body uses the removal of stool as one of our detoxification pathways. And so if you are collecting that, you are keeping toxins in your body. So even if you don't have to strain, if you're not going every day, that's a place to think, ooh, I've got some work to do here. The converse of that is also true. If you are going to the bathroom more than about 3 times a day, the average person, healthy person, should go 1 to 3 times a day. If your stools are incredibly liquidy, it's one of those, I have to go right now. Sorry, I have to bail on this conversation to go. Or it's lots of times a day. Or if there's any blood in your stool, those are definitely signs that things are not going well. And a lot of times we'll diagnose it as ulcerative colitis. We'll diagnose it as, um, you know, um, I just lost my brain on some of the other names. Doesn't matter. We get all these names for it, and then they're like, this is just how you're going to be. And it's not true. We can heal the gut, but we have to make drastic changes because stress, hormone imbalances, food problems are all sleep problems, they're all contributing to this dysfunction in the gut. And so I would say it's a lot better to catch them early than to end up with the doctor and a million immunosuppressant drugs, which are going to affect so many more things as well. When diet and lifestyle can do immense things to change those. So if you're, even if you're like, it's fine, I don't go, but every 3 days, I don't need to go to the doctor. It's not that uncomfortable. Well, you're heading down a slippery slope. So I would start trying to make some changes before you end up having to go to the doctor.
Yeah. And speaking of the gut, and kind of, I always say, the our tiny little friends in our gut, our little warriors, our little bugs, our microbiome in there. What are the tips for people who, maybe have some issues and they feel, my gut is just not, I can feel my gut is not okay. Are there any, things that we can be doing? Because obviously we know that the gut is linked to so many things. And I always
Mhm.
say that I fully believe, I live this in oblivious belief conviction that because I am training my gut with so many things, I give it a variety, but also test it here and there with stuff to make sure it stays on the edge and that I nourish, well resilient landscape in there that I don't get cold, I don't get sick, I don't get flus. Like none of these basic viruses, basic illnesses just don't get anywhere near me because my immune system, my gut is like,
Yep.
we've got you, girl. Like I can feel a little bit of like something's going on. And the next day my gut is like, we sorted you, we've done it, we've done the job, we're good. So if people want to feel kind of overall, better levels of health, better levels of immune system activation, because the gut and immunity are so closely linked, what are the things we can do to really, take care of our gut, of our little friends?
Yeah. If you've started to notice you're having gut troubles, without testing, one of the best places to begin is to cut out gluten, dairy, and eggs. And I would do one at a time for a 30-day period of time. Now, in Europe, you guys have wheat that is actually not so toxic as ours over here. Our wheat is just atrocious. It's filled with so many nasty things. So I'm not sure I would start with that one in Europe. But in the US, I would start by cutting out gluten. It is a really big problem. Um, Gluten, for those that don't know, is found in wheat, barley, and rice. So if you cut those 3 grains out, you will cut out gluten. And then watch your labels because they hide flour in everything. So I would just try one of those for 30 days and see how you feel. And then if you don't feel any different, feel free to add it back in and then try another one for 30 days and see how you feel. or stack another one. Sometimes cutting out all three is really helpful. But those are the most common food sensitivities in our world. I don't find that everybody has a problem with all three in my testing, but if you're not at a place where you want to test to know, that's probably a good place to start. Coffee and alcohol are two really big bombers, as well as NSAIDs, so anti-inflammatories, are going to blow holes in your gut lining. And so those are places to just check, mental check, how much of this am I really consuming? And I don't mean so it's the caffeine in the coffee. So it's black tea and green tea as well. The caffeine, the alcohol, and the medication use are really going to disrupt your gut lining. And so do a self-check. How often are you consuming those, and can you cut those back to give that gut lining time to heal? And the last thing is if you are having gut troubles and your doctor keeps telling you to eat more fiber and your gut keeps getting worse, lay off the fiber. It's not a miracle cure for everybody. Fiber in our plants is fine. I would not add extra fiber in if if you're struggling and you're trying to add more fiber and it's not working, give it a whirl, try the other direction and see how you feel that way. Because sometimes laying off the fiber when we're struggling is actually the right thing to do. I like to think of fiber as a Brillo pad. It scours clean the inside of the intestines, and sometimes we need that. But if you already have a mucosal lining that's wimping out, to scour off that lining is going to make things worse. And so some people, and this of course is not medical advice, these are just educational points for you to test out. But some people need less, not more.
Thing because I think it will be often also cultural. Like, what is we're talking generally here maybe about more the US, maybe more the UK, but then we look at Europe and there's so many tiny pockets. And I come from the Czech Republic, Central Eastern Europe. So we have our own remedies. And in these situations, I remember my family would always be, yeah, here's a bowl of sauerkraut, eat some sauerkraut. We would always have buttermilk or kefir to drink to be like, this is part of your diet. So are there any other
Yes.
foods that people can possibly, we talked about what they can remove and experiment with not having. Are there any things that they can, start adding in to, again, prevention, building the variety, building in the resilience?
I don't have any specific ones because that is one thing that I've learned is we're taught eat the rainbow, and we're taught you got to have your balanced food groups, your food plate, your food pyramid, whatever. And it's not true. Every human body has different needs. And so this is where I think going back to that intuition is really helpful. If you eat a food and you're like, this is gross and I don't want to eat it, but so and so, whatever somebody says I should eat it, I'm going to tell you don't. Your body is sending you a message that says you don't need that one, and now it's a toxin and you have to get rid of it. A good example is someone very dear to me had food testing done and doesn't like broccoli and doesn't like garlic and never has. And when we did the food testing, it is incredibly inflammatory for him. And so it's like, well, okay, so your body really was telling you that broccoli is not your superfood. You should not eat broccoli. And so I think listen to your gut on those pieces that make you not feel good and vice versa. Now we have to be careful because sugar in theory makes us feel good, but not really. So what your foods that are good for your body make you feel good in the moment and 2 hours later, you should still feel good. And so if you're going to try something out, sugar, when we eat it 2 hours later, we're like, "Ugh," there's some like lethargic and I maybe I'm a little nauseous and I want more sugar, right? So that's not good. But when you eat something that your body is really craving and that is nutritious for your body, you will feel good at the time you eat it and you will still feel good about 2 hours later. So find your own superfoods. Which ones make you feel good now and later?
But you also hit on a topic that I really love is the quality of food.
Mhm.
So it's I know that in the US the quality of food can be really appalling and what gets put into it. So you're eating a supposedly
Yes.
healthy diet, you're having all your vegetables, but it's where are you getting those vegetables from? Are they just from the supermarket that have been sprayed, have a lot of toxins put on them to make them look good and last forever? Or are you getting them from a
Yeah.
farmer's market that has not been sprayed and they do wilt within a day or two because that's what good vegetables do. They go frot quickly.
Yeah.
So I think that's also really important is you might think that you're being healthy, whereas you're not, and then you might be thinking that
Mhm.
you shouldn't be eating. I'm going to use broccoli because you used it up, and I know that not everybody does find broccoli toxic. But the thing is, the
Yeah.
broccoli you eating might be toxic, but it's not necessarily that it's toxic to you. It's the toxic broccoli that you're eating. So it might be worth going and looking for good broccoli because that's what you need. But instead, you're putting in bad broccoli that is toxic and full of chemicals and full of sprays and full of all sorts. And this is something that I'm really passionate about is the way that food is produced, is the way that vegetables are grown, the way the animals are looked after, the what, just everything from the seed to your plate. What's the process that the food has gone through in order to get onto your plate? And I think that also is vital, is if you're going to be looking after your health what quality food
Mhm.
are you putting into? Because you could be, I eat healthy, I have my, rainbow or my pyramid or my colors, and I love this food, but you're actually doing more harm because you're not having the good quality, and instead you're having the bad quality. England is still you can get a lot of good organic stuff, but it is getting more and more difficult to find really good food because the rules and regulations are slowly slacking a little bit. And I think
Mhm.
that's really important is where are you getting your food? Where's it coming from? Do you know the history of your food? It's all very well if it's coming from South Africa or Mexico and it looks really beautiful, but what's been happening to it while it's on that ship or however it's being transported? Or are you going down to the local farm shop or the markets once a week and just buying from the farmers or there? They might not look as straight, they might not look as perfect as you get in the shop, but they taste better, they rot quicker,
Right.
and therefore you know that you're getting more nutrients in that than you are going to the supermarket and getting that beautiful vegetable or fruit that looks really good. 5 days later, it still looks really good. And I
Yeah.
think that that's can be something really important is where's your food coming from? How has it been produced and grown and stored and everything else?
I totally agree. I think in the hierarchy, I think getting rid of processed foods, anything in the United States, anything from the center of the grocery store, I would imagine you guys set your supermarkets up similarly, but anything that comes in a box with a barcode, needs to disappear from your diet. Once you've gotten rid of those, then the next priority is to start to shift to more organic. If you have to prioritize because you can't afford all of the organic, prioritize thin-skinned fruits and vegetables because those will absorb the pesticides and stuff into the meat of the fruit and the vegetable through the skin versus thicker skin. I mean, obviously we love it all, but if we have to pick, the thicker skins can be not organic and you can still be relatively good with those. And then from your meat, your chicken and your pork are better organic than your beef. Because beef is ruminants and your lambs are going to be more along the lines with the beef. They're ruminant animals. They digest and process the food and they detoxify better than our monogastric animals. And so if you're going to go with organic meat, choose your chickens and your porks first in terms of the budget over your beef and your lamb, because you'll get better bang for your buck in that realm.
Yeah, it's something that I can get onto my soapbox for hours and hours, and it's something that I'm really passionate about is the way the food is produced as well as grown, as well as the way the animals are looked after. So thank you so for allowing me a little bit of space on
Of
on
course.
on your soapbox. How's that? We shared the
It's
soapbox.
great. It's so wonderful. It's so important. I was listening to a podcast the other day about, knowing where your food comes, and it's just so important. And we are so disconnected from our food systems these days, which I think, there was a time and a place where that was necessary, but I think we're through that era, and I think by being disconnected, we've forgotten what it means to be nutritious. And I think we're really seeing that in our overall health. And so I'm glad you pointed that out.
Well, that's been great, and as Lenka says, we can talk for hours. But one thing we do like is we love a little gold nugget, and this is what we call our gold nugget section. But basically, this is a little space that we ask, Katie, can we please have your gold nugget?
Um, I think two things that I was thinking. One we talked about was sunlight. We are so electrified in all of our inside lights that we have forgotten how nourishing and enriching the sun is and how important it is in our lives. And so, getting sunlight into your eyes first thing in the morning is a simple, free, really easy way to start shifting your sleep patterns back to more healthy. So that would be one. When you're going to go out to eat, skip the bread or the carbohydrates that show up first. So if you're going to Mexican or what, whatever, they bring a basket of chips, don't eat them until the protein and the fat shows up. You can eat them, but eat them with the meal, not before the meal. Because when you eat carbohydrates before you start on the rest of your meal, it spikes your blood sugar, actually makes you more hungry, and you have a much larger tendency of overeating because you started the meal with carbohydrate. Sleep is a really good one. I just think our so many of our problems stem from our really crazy, really messed up sleep cycles. And if we can get those uh, back in control, I think a lot of our health challenges start to improve.
And sleep is so important, and we've had a guest talking about sleep and how you get pulled over for driving drunk, and but yet if you sleep deprived it's the same as driving drunk, and how many people are sleep deprived and on the roads. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. And this is why we love our gold nuggets, because we get some really beautiful gold nuggets. So thank you very much.
Yes, my pleasure.
Now, for our listeners, if they thinking, you know what, I have this niggle, or I don't want to get worse, or I'm feeling healthy, but how can I stay healthy? Whatever it is, and they just want to connect with you or find out more or just be in your circle, where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram at angel.wing.health. And I post, I'm not a super crazy social media person. So usually once a week, I'll put something out there, little tidbits on tricks and hacks you can do. I have done lots of talks on nutrition, and I post those on my YouTube channel at Angel Wing Health. And then if you're interested in coaching, if you go to my website, which is angelwinghealth.com, um, there's lots of information there. You can do angelwinghealth.com/discovery call and book a free 30-minute call with me. And we'll sit down and we'll talk about what are your health goals and then what it is that I do more in depth and see if it's a fit. I only work with people that fit in with where my specialty is and with what I'm looking for in clients. I don't want to waste your time and I don't want you to waste mine if we don't fit together. So we'll sit down, we'll visit for a little bit, see if it makes sense to work together, and then we would move ahead from there. So those are our three options. And then I have a freebie if anybody wants 5 things that often get in the way of your health that you might not even know are in the way. And you can go to angelwinghealth.com/fix5, FIX, and then the number 5. And that just will give you a free resource of 5 things that might be in your way that you just weren't aware of yet. So
Love it. And for listeners, all the links will be in the description below. Wherever you're listening or watching this podcast, we'll make sure that all the links are included so you can easily find them and click on them. So thank you so much, Katie, for a very thorough deep dive into, health and well-being and nutrition and getting better. And it really played perfectly into the theme here on the podcast, where we're looking at different ways to, have more life in your life, to have and live happily, healthily, more fulfilled lives. And I'm always curious to know, right now in the place where you are, in your career, in your life, what gives you life?
oh, my mission right now is to help mission-driven women find the energy they need to complete their missions by getting their health challenges out of the way. I love to watch my clients heal, to feel better, to have more energy, to be able to go out and do the work that they were called and destined to do because now their health isn't keeping them tied into their houses. Um, so that's what gets me up and lights me up every day.
And that sounds like a very purposeful mission is helping others. So thank you so much. And
My
thank you for
pleasure.
sharing your time with us today and sharing your energy and your expertise and advice and just helping, myself and Lenka, but also our listeners to maybe become more aware of our bodies, to really start to listen more or hear what it's trying to tell us and take time out. So thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. It was my honor to be here today. Thank you so much for letting me come.
And for our listeners, what have you got from today? What aha moments? What little niggles are making you start to think, oh, I need to start thinking about myself or looking at my body or really starting to understand my body. So we would love to know your thoughts, your journeys, and what is helping you or ways have you found to really start to listen to your body. But until next time, we'll chat to you soon. Bye.